next up we have Team 8. It's my pleasure to introduce Team Fantadime.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're Team Fantadime. Each year, over 180,000 Americans undergo amputations. These surgeries are often due to causes such as trauma, diabetic neuropathy, as well as combat injuries, and can amount to over $500,000 in total lifetime healthcare costs per amputee. But to make matters worse, 82% of these patients develop a symptom known as phantom limb pain. Phantom limb pain is the sensation of pain or discomfort in a limb that no longer exists. It occurs in the forms of episodic flare-ups and can begin immediately after surgery, but can also persist from months or years or even into the future and develop into a sort of chronic pain. Here are some examples of quotes of how amputees have described their phantom limb pain. It feels like you're running through a raspberry bush with thorns and shorts on. It grabs, tearing, and embeds its thorns in you. It's like a pitchfork jammed through the foot. It feels like a glowing red-hot rebar that I stepped on, or 100,000 needles or knives. Current treatments to phantom limb pain include invasive therapies, such as pain medication, which is often a first line of defense, but can lead to certain side effects such as oxygen toxicity, as well as surgical intervention. But in order to minimize these side effects, physicians have actually turned their patients towards non-invasive therapies. These include transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation, or TENS, in which tiny electrical pulses are sent through the skin in order to block signals to the brain. But because pain is subjective, in order to alter these parameters of the TENS unit, it's often up to the patient themselves and can lead to tolerance. Another therapy includes visual therapy, in which the residual limb is mirrored onto the intact limb. And this is often via a mirror or augmented in virtual reality modalities. What we have discovered is that coupling TENS and augmented visual therapy in a visual tactile electrical sensation is more effective in relieving PLP than either alone, as proven by many studies. And so we also wondered, is there a way that we can detect signals from the brain in order to determine the level of pain and adapt to it? This leads us to our solution.
Introducing Fantadime, a low-cost, at-home therapeutic device that uses EEG data to guide adaptive TENS and augmented visual therapy for real-time PLP relief. Fantadime works using three main components. First, our mobile app houses the user interface and provides the visual therapy. Second, our EEG headset has 4 electrodes that can detect pain straight from the brain. And third, our TENS patches will deliver electrical stimulation exactly where the pain is on the residual limb. Fantadime addresses 4 major needs specifications. It is low cost, can be used at home by the patient, it is adaptive to pain, and provides therapy in real time. As for our competitive landscape, a standardized TENS unit only provides electrical stimulation with no detection of pain. Phantom AR correlates EMG data with augmented reality, but again is not designed for phantom limb pain and cannot detect pain itself. Exergo is a research company that is attempting to correlate pain with EEG signals more accurately. So only Fantadime addresses all 4 of the needs specifications. The device workflow consists of 4 components, and for our POC, we first started by creating an EEG that could detect state changes from the brain. The ML model was trained on open source data. The TENS unit was created with adjustable frequency and a wired unit, and the visual therapy relied on a video processing pipeline. As for the minimum viable product, we achieved furthering all 4 components. The EEG was composed of 4 electrodes and was used for real-time data collection. The ML model was then used to classify pain based on specific subject data. The TENS unit was made wireless, and then the amplitude was adjustable. And the visual therapy relied on camera capture with processing within the iOS app itself. The main achievement of the MVP was integrating all 4 components together into one cohesive device.
Looking towards our final prototype, we had several different objectives for each component. First, for the EEG, we wanted to condense all of our circuitry down into a PCB so that it could seamlessly integrate into our headset. This is what the headset currently looks like on a subject. We have the front phone carrier, which captures motion and is for the visual AR therapy. We have the electrodes on top of the scalp to measure EEG data continuously, and we have an adjustable strap in the back so that the patient could tighten or loosen however they seem fit, all so that the user could use it at any point in time. For our ML model, we wanted to improve its ability to predict the onset of pain. To do this, we wanted to structure our testing so that we could simulate sudden flare-ups similar to how patients with PLP experience them. We used a pain proxy of a TENS unit as it sends short stimulated pulses to a muscle. So within one 60-second trial, we would turn on the TENS unit from 20 seconds to 30 seconds to simulate that sudden increase in pain or sudden flare-up. After collecting 20 different trials, we then trained our model with this data, and it was able to classify short windows of EEG data with the label of pain or no pain with an accuracy of 71.6%. We then wanted to test its ability to predict when a patient was experiencing pain within that 60-second trial. And so we collected 10 separate trials in which the patient was experiencing the same thing, in which we had the TENS unit from 20 seconds to 30 seconds. We gave that trial to the model. The model over a rolling window would calculate a pain probability. If that pain probability was above a certain threshold, a flag would be noted, and if there were 5 or more consecutive flags, the model would determine that the patient was experiencing pain. For example, within this first trial, the model predicted that the patient was experiencing pain at that blue mark within that 10-second period in which the TENS unit was turned on. After collecting 10 separate trials and doing this, our model was able to predict 70% of the time when the patient was experiencing pain within that 10-second window, showing us that our model is able to predict pain readily, reliably, majority of the time.
So next is the TENS component. The final goal for TENS was to integrate the PCB and make the enclosure. The TENS modulation unit is housed in a compact enclosure with 4 main components: the ESP32 Nano, PCB, battery, and servo motor to manually adjust the frequencies. This enclosure is then attached directly on top of the electrode patches using Velcro, which makes it easy to swap out the patches as needed. So how this will work is, at the beginning of the session, the user will choose an intensity level that feels comfortable for them, and that will stay fixed throughout. But during the session, the frequency only is adjusted by the device and is adjusted by the device and moving on to our last component. So the purpose of our preliminary UI design was to record and label EEG data, train and calibrate the model, and validate detection accuracy. And the purpose of the final UI design was to have passive pain monitoring, longitudinal pain tracking, and real-time clinical alerts. So to walk you through the app, it first starts with a login screen, and once the user logs in, they'll be able to see the status of the TENS and EEG devices, toggle session length, and view session history. And as for the AR component, the video processing pipeline will capture the leg movement, mirror it, and place it against the real background. So all these different components come together to form a complete end-to-end pain monitoring and pain relief system.
Looking forward, our next steps are housed as EEG and hardware optimization, making sure that we have a large data set for our ML to be extremely generalizable, and have clinical trials with the Penn VA, in which our mentor is a doctor at. All of these combined is in hopes of having further testing for a IRB application we hope to submit. As we move on through the next few weeks, we anticipate challenges into 3 main buckets. First is having a consistent EEG signal quality with the density of hair and maintaining high conductivity. To address this challenge, we decided that we want to improve skin preparation, have electrodes that are tested with different material compositions, and make sure we have the tightest fit between the scalp and the electrode to have the best signal. A second challenge that we anticipate is minimizing false positives. To do that, we want to increase our sample size by testing different genders, races, or backgrounds. Lastly, we want to make our headset as adjustable as possible so that anyone can use it. Our next iteration of our prototype will be adding an extension slider on the top with a ratchet catch mechanism. We are sharing our device with the broader engineering community at these 2 conferences we were accepted to, the Northeast Bioengineering Conference and the University of Minnesota's Design of Medical Devices Conference, and we are looking forward to additional feedback from the broader engineering community. The cost of phantom limb pain is unimaginable to hospitals, caretakers, and the patients they affect. Fantodyme hopes to address that cost. We would love to acknowledge everyone who has helped us this entire year. Thank you very much. We are Fantodyme, relieving phantom limb pain with personalized neurotherapy. We're now open to any questions.
Love the idea. Just in general, when someone is using, your device, how are you actually measuring like the pain reduction? Is it just like a subjective scale for the user, or is just like their feedback in general? Just curious.
Hello? Okay. Yeah, great question. So currently what our prototype has is we're doing like a binary classification of like pain on versus off. Obviously this does not make sense for like pain in general, but I think as a prototype and for senior design, our goal was to first be able to leverage the EEG signals in order to detect that kind of pain. And so looking forward in terms of like what a final prototype or like product would look like, we're definitely thinking of, first of all, personalized therapy where the model is going to be tailored towards the patient who is using it. So that could either mean acquiring certain amount of data where the patient will rate their level of pain currently and then using those signals in order to train on them and then be able to predict that or something like that. But yeah, great question.
Cool, that was really awesome. Could you explain why you chose XGBoost and then also like what features you fed into it? And did you determine any specific features that were like more relevant or less relevant? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so in terms of XGBoost, the very first thing that we did is we have this EEG data and we want to train a model on it, right? And so we started out with logistic regression, which is a relatively more simple model, but what we ended up doing is testing a bunch of different models and seeing the highest accuracy. And because what we noticed is that when we're acquiring the EEG data, training it, and then testing it real time, there's a lot of variability in terms of setup. And so ultimately, based off of the different models that we tried, logistic regression, neural networks, as well as like XGBoost, which we use here, it just ended up being the model with the highest accuracy. In terms of features, we had put up, for example, channel 4's gamma was a relatively important feature that we identified, and we also ended up extracting certain features, including alpha bands, gamma bands, and those are very relevant in terms of EEG data. But yeah.
Cool, thanks.
This is a really interesting idea. I'm an EEGer, so I'm very familiar with EEG signals. They are notoriously difficult to run any sort of AI algorithm on because there's a lot of artifact and other user-related things that can happen. It's good, I guess, that you're using only 4-channel EEG, but what are you doing to address that?
I think for now we are solely focusing on the binary classification scheme foremost and just trying to consistently get an EEG signal. And so we've been trying a lot of different ways, using different electrodes, using different skin preparations, etc. Just foremost, just so that we can see if we can get reliable data consistently each time. Especially when we were first prototyping, we just wanted to even see if we could see eyes closed versus eyes open from that signal. And so I think long term, as we continue and potentially even incorporate even more electrodes to incorporate more data for the model itself as well, I think we're just hoping to see if we can mitigate some of the more noises and artifacts as well that come our way as we look further.
Great work. Thank you, Team Fantodyme.